Call the December Capital Program Committee to order. Do we have any members of the public that would like to provide comments?
Yes, good afternoon. We have 7 members of the public registered to speak today. As a reminder, we ask that all public speakers adhere to the MTA's rules of conduct and decorum. We would also like to remind our public speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware that there will be a warning beep to remind you have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. Our first speaker will be Jason Anthony, followed by Christopher Greif.
Good afternoon, David and Jamie and the rest of the Capital Construction Committee. Let's do our Christmas list for the year. Yes, we have done a lot under Jamie's leadership, and I give kudos to him and his team, but we want more. What is it that we want more of? Elevators and ramps, that is. For example, at Court Square on the E as a eggnog and F as a froyo, we could use the Jamaica-bound platform instead of having an elevator. Why not have a ramp there? And then we have the total Court Square / 23rd Street complex fully accessible. And also, we want a status update regarding the M9A for our Metro North commuters, because we want to say goodbye to the old metropolitans, in other words, the M3As, that they're older than my own self. And also, we want a status update if there's a procurement yet for design for the R262s that will be replacing the R62s that are old as my own self, that is 37. So with that said, I'll yield the rest of my time. Happy holidays, and I'll see you guys next year.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Christopher Greif, followed by Bruce Hain.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I agree with the fellow speaker. One thing I just wanted to add is as we are getting a lot of things accomplished in 2023, elevators, more accessibility, as we mentioned this earlier, but I do want to remind in the capital world that we can continue on the railroad ends as well as the subways to have more larger signages, more of the ramps, more areas for access for seniors and people with disabilities. It could be wheelchairs, walkers, strollers, everything across the board. As it reminds you that part of the capital we hope to see on the railroad ends, and this is Metro North and Long Island Railroad, they have the alert buttons to let the crew know there's an accessible customer waiting in this position station. It could be the front, the middle, or the back, or closer to the back, or closer to the front. More of those can actually help to get them on and off the train safely. The more safety, the more people will get on the railroads in anywhere in the New York region. I also want to wish everyone a happy, healthy holiday and a happy new year. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bruce Hain, followed by Lisa Daglian.
Good morning. I want to keep on topic, so I may as well talk about something that is related. You're always I'm wondering about that bridge, the first procurement on your agenda, because that needs to be 2-tracked all the way to Port Washington. The old bridge at Plandome, you got utilities going over one side of that, but it's a 2-track bridge. So I hope you're not boxing that into 1 track, because that makes me mad. And the point of this, my speaking today, is I brought all these to try and convince you that you shouldn't do any more boxing in of the Long Island Railroad, and what you should be doing at Jamaica is removing that platform. The platform is wrong. Remove it. You need through tracks, and you don't build the flyover until you can build it so it goes to the through tracks. You address the problem with the tracks going from 3 down to 2 on the east, and bring 3 tracks into the station, because by the time the flyover sits down there, I don't know, it's 250 feet back from the platform. By the time it sits down, how are you going to have special track work to do that? I don't see it. Anyway, I wish you'd read it, because I've tried to describe it more fluently than I seem to be able to here. So here's your items. I don't know, is there someone? Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lisa Daglian, followed by Cameron Best.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Lisa Daglian, Executive Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA PCAC. Today, you'll be asked to move forward 18 actions on contracts totaling more than $1.6 billion, the majority of which are design-build. What a great way to close out the year. We'd love to see projects that'll improve the rider experience across the system, whether we directly see and feel them, like elevator and escalator improvements, or don't, hopefully, like emergency alarm systems at transit stations and substations. The work planned and being performed now will be great for the economy and for the longevity of the transit network. That's why it's so important that key funding for the 2024 capital program come through. Specifically, the $15 billion from congestion pricing and almost $7 billion from new revenue sources. We know that some of that money is anticipated to come toward the end of the program, but we can't continue to wait for congestion pricing. We're already seeing the price of delay. The holdup in congestion pricing monies caused a pause in Fulton CBTC installation, something riders need sooner than later. We applaud efforts to make other delays as painless as possible, but even a minor toothache can turn into root canal if it isn't addressed. Some projects are in Amtrak's court, namely East River Tunnels and Penn Access projects. We hope to see them move expeditiously. We learned last week that an award for ERT is expected in the first quarter of 24. Hopefully, we'll see work before the 11th anniversary of Sandy, finally. We look forward to working with the LARR team on what service will look like when tunnels are taken out. It's critical that construction work is completed before Penn Access, another project at the mercy of Amtrak. It seems as though things are finally getting on track, but come on, Amtrak. The region's riders need the new service that will finally bring trains into the East Bronx. The cost of delay adds to the cost of congestion and rider frustration. Let's make the holidays super happy and get congestion pricing and these critical projects across the finish line. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cameron Best, followed by Alita Dupree, remotely.
Hello. I've been a bit disappointed by the 20-year needs assessment and the way it talks about electrification on the Port Jefferson line. To me, it feels like the LIRR operates two railroads, a diesel railroad and an electrified railroad. The diesel portions are slower and have older, less reliable equipment. The lowest on-time performance sections this month were all in the diesel portions. Electrification is also key to more service. The cost of electrification that was outlined in the 20-year needs assessment seemed really high even for MTA standards. The report also didn't specify what some of the main cost drivers were, if it was double tracking, electrification, station improvements, and similarly, it also doesn't talk about the cost of a no-build alternative where we have to buy more diesel locomotives and continue to maintain them since the current diesel locomotives are not in great shape right now. Similarly, the MTA is implementing a sustainability plan, but there's no mention in the report of how much money the MTA would be able to save on their sustainability plan with further LIRR electrification. I hope that these questions are answered in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Alita Dupree.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair David and members. Alita Dupree, for the record, she and her with Team Foltz. Can't say that I've met you yet. And I'm very appreciative of Jano. So hopefully Jano will return to the room soon. But David, thank you for chairing today. This report is a big report. I did read about various things such as new radios for buses and the renewal of a substation. Substations are very important, and radios and lots of other things that we have to keep after, things that the public doesn't often think about, but it is the things that are often not seen that really matter the most. And Omni is essential. There's more work that we can do getting those vending machines out and filling them with Omni cards, and building our retail network so we can move away from MetroCard, because I look forward to a day when we will no longer have any damaged MetroCard stores. And electricity is essential. Buying electric buses, previous meeting, they're buying more diesel buses. And so I ask you as a capital committee to continue to advance electrification in all parts of our system, because I did get to ride on the electric bus and I enjoyed it very much and hope to do so again. And how do we build a renewable power system? We should have a chart as to our electricity usage, and maybe we need to build some infrastructure to generate renewable electricity to run our system. So thank you. And I look forward to the things you have to say today. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And that concludes our public comment session.
Thank you. Copies of the November Capital Program Committee minutes have been distributed and are now available on the website. Are there any changes or comments in the minutes? Okay, I was hoping. May I have a motion to approve? We can't because we don't have a quorum. Okay, so we'll take them, we'll put them out to the,
How many of us are there? Steve, we have a quorum? When Channel comes in, we can do it.
okay, we'll take it up later. Okay. Let me go. Are there any changes to the work plan?
There are no changes to the work plan.
Okay. Thank you all. Now turn it back over to Jamie Torres-Springer for the President's report.
Thank you, board member. Welcome, members of the committee. Glad to be getting underway a little earlier this month. And happy to be giving you some updates on the success of the capital program and the many things that are going on, particularly at the end of the year. Last week, we were joined by Borough President Levine and State Senator Jackson to open our 8th ADA station this year, 9 when we include the public-private partnership with Macy's for Hoyt Street in downtown Brooklyn. We have 26 more stations in construction. We're continuing to build stations at 5 times the pace of previous capital programs to meet that commitment of at least 95% accessibility. And by the way, I'm just going to go back because the mosaic artwork at 181st Street by Carmen Lizardo called Great Waves of Immigration, which maybe not this is more of an elevator focus shot than a mosaic focus shot, but is really something. I mean, it's an extraordinary station. It's a landmark station. And this artwork really reflects some of the characteristics of that neighborhood and that community. And we're very proud that was part of the ADA project. Chair, I'm just moving on with the report here. We were also excited to fully replace the fare array at Sutphin Archer on the E, J, and Z. More updates on fare evasion improvements and progress on Wednesday at the full board meeting. There are 13 contracts coming to the committee later in this meeting, including 10 design build contracts of major significance for the future of the capital program, and 3 accompanying maintenance contracts for elevators that go along with the design build projects for elevator improvements. It's a great package of projects. We're particularly pleased with the progress on ADA and on state of good repair. There are more contract awards in the works for this year as well. Just to highlight one, and we'll talk a lot about all of these, Broadway Junction, which is the 3rd busiest station in Brooklyn after Atlantic Avenue and J Street Metrotech, with 100,000 daily riders, will be awarded a design build contract to make it fully ADA accessible and effectively rebuild this entire station, which is much in need of it. This is a very complex reconstruction of 3 stations, and we've been proud to be collaborating with the city on how this investment complements its plans for economic development in East New York. This is all at the same time as we look at other improvements in East New York, beginning the design for the Long Island Railroad Station as identified in the 20-year needs assessment, and we're looking at improvements related to the Interborough Express service that is under study and being progressed in environmental review in the future, which would have a station in this location as well. We're grateful to USDOT for a RAISE grant that helped to make this ADA project possible, and of course that with the support of Congressman Jeffries and Senator Schumer. Nonetheless, despite being proud that we're really achieving great velocity on keeping our capital program moving. As we've noted previously, there are some limitations, particularly the resignalization of the CBTC project for the Fulton Avenue line that we were not able to bring this year due to the uncertainty, Fulton Street, thank you, Andrew. Due to the uncertainty related to the timing of the congestion pricing proceeds, which is going to increasingly become an issue over the next few months as we try to resolve that issue. So for that reason, we are unfortunately not going to make the $10 billion target, but we've made a huge amount of progress otherwise, despite those headwinds. We'll report in January on the full package of awards and successes in cost containment on those awards. I just wanted to remind the committee that we are successfully containing costs in every way we can. When we benchmarked some recent state of good repair projects, which is 83% of the capital program, the costs were at the high end of the range, as you see here, but they were within 30 to 50% of the cost of benchmarks that we looked at, which is roughly the same difference that we see between New York City commercial office development and the same type of development elsewhere. So the message is, we're a high-cost city, but that doesn't mean that we accept those costs and that we're resting on our laurels. We are acting in every way that we can. We've made gains through clear upfront scoping of projects, better sharing of risks with contractors and consultants, and much more aggressive project management to keep work on budget and on schedule. And in the next year, we'll be continuing these practices and making investments in technology, systems, and human capital to support better, faster, cheaper project delivery. Again, as a reminder, last year we saw almost $350 million in our bids below our estimated cost. We'll report back about this year's awards in the early part of next year. We were able to save almost $400 million in the placement of our owner-controlled insurance program due to confidence in the way that we're executing the program. And we saved $200 million through efficiency in labor in delivering force account in New York City transit projects. So that right there is $1 billion in savings. And we'll be back next year to sum up how we did this year. This brings us to
next month, right?
Next month.
Next month,
Next
yeah.
month, which is next year. This brings us to the update from Bridges and Tunnels, which exemplifies many of these positive trends. Before I turn things over to Joe Keene for the B&T update, I wanted to highlight a few things about the stellar performance of this business unit, not only in maintaining these critical crossings, but contributing to the mission of the MTA in various ways. And of course, I should welcome back our former colleague, Kathy Sheridan, the president of the Bridges and Tunnels Agency, to CPC. We're glad she's here to support the incredible work of the Bridges and Tunnels business unit. As the board members know, MTA B&T operates 7 bridges and 2 tunnels linking the 5 boroughs of New York City and serving approximately 325 million vehicles a year. The facilities range in age from 53 to 87 years, so they require a sustained effort in investment to ensure their structural integrity, safety, and state of good repair. And the B&T unit delivers on that mission year in and year out. The projects that you'll hear about today, 12 projects that either were completed this year or are ongoing and headed towards on-schedule completion, are coming in $88 million under budget, out of a total budget of $920 million. So that's almost a 10% savings versus the budget that B&T has delivered. And B&T is using design build and effective project scoping to continue this trend with the major contract awards that will be presented to the committee today. I want to just highlight some of the proactive strategies for preservation and longevity. We're planning to install weigh-in-motion technology on the Verrazano, RFK, Cross Bay, and Marine Parkway bridges to identify overweight trucks traveling across bridges, which can lead to premature replacement of bridge infrastructure. B&T is initiating use of a preservation technique called main cable dehumidification on the RFK and the Verrazano bridges, with plans for other bridges in the future. This is a proven technique used around the world to minimize corrosion within the main cables and preserve their strength, thus extending the longevity of suspension bridges. B&T has also adapted a standard practice of modern overcoat painting that provides up to 30 years of protection against corrosion of steel elements. 3-coat system, the primer protects from corrosion, the middle coat serves as a moisture barrier, and the top coat provides color and gloss retention. And as we've mentioned before, through the collaborative magic of C&D, our infrastructure business unit supporting New York City Transit has adopted these best practices to extend the life of the many line structures in the subway system, and you can see some of the great progress made also in Broadway Junction using this new overcoating technique pioneered by B&T. And in addition to that, B&T is an increasingly important contributor to some of our broad MTA objectives like pedestrian and bicycle accessibility and environmentally sustainable construction. Last year, we launched the MTA Strategic Action Plan to improve bicycle and pedestrian access, and the work on the bridges is right on schedule with actions in that plan. Projects are underway to provide accessible ramps on the Henry Hudson, Cross Bay, and RFK bridges. On the RFK, and Joe, correct me if I get this slightly wrong, the connection on the Manhattan side has been completed. The connections between Randall's Island and Manhattan and the Bronx are well underway. And one of the proposed awards today will include an ADA-compliant bike and ped path from Astoria and Queens to Randall's Island. So all of that together would make all of the spans of the RFK bridge fully ADA compliant and accessible for bicycles and pedestrians. Joe will, if I did a slight exaggeration, Joe will fix that when we get to his turn here. And this business unit is committed to investing in sustainability. Recently, C&D launched an effort to develop standards for low carbon in construction, but Bridges and Tunnels is already ahead of the game, having achieved a 24% reduction in embodied carbon on the RFK project that Joe's talking about today. We've started to install electric vehicle charging at a number of facilities and are partnering with the New York Power Authority to look at solar power generation and develop a plan to transition B&T's fleet to zero-emission vehicles. So we're very proud of the many things that are underway at B&T, and with that, I want to pass it along to Joe for a more detailed update. And maybe Joe, we'll just catch a question from Board Member Glucksman.
Yeah, the monitoring of the overweight trucks, for what purpose is it to? Okay.
I'll let Joe handle that.
Yeah, well, we want to make sure that the trucks are complying with the regulations. They're not overstressing the structures, and because if they are significantly overweight, many cycles of that behavior, ultimately it reduces what they call the fatigue life, which is basically the longevity of the structures. So we're very concerned about it. Something that we want to closely monitor.
Penalty? I mean, you go after them for zero.
To be determined.
There are penalties. The TBTA operations does pull over these trucks, and they do manual scales to weigh them, and they do issue violations and fines based on them not complying with the various.
But it's public knowledge that the truck drivers have to know what the weight is that they're allowed to traverse our crossings.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jamie, for the introduction. B&T's 20 to 24 core capital program is $2.8 billion. We've already discussed some of the key strategies for long-term preservation of our facilities. Just want to focus a little on the delivery strategy. We utilize both design-build and design-bid-build procurement strategies as appropriate based on the project scope. In addition, we bundle co-located capital and related maintenance work under one contract to maximize efficiency and minimize impacts to customers. We'll be discussing examples of these strategies in the subsequent slides. First, look at our commitments and completions for 2023. Our planned commitments in 23 were $476 million, including projects that are being presented for approval to award at today's meeting. We anticipate approximately $1 billion in commitments this year. Regarding completions, we will meet 100% of our annual goal of $360 million. Listed on this slide are our major completions for 2023. I'll discuss these in greater detail. Our most significant completion in 2023 was this $212 million design bid build project to rehabilitate the 8,000-foot-long viaduct approaches at the Throgs Neck Bridge. The slide shows a view of the Throgs Neck Bridge viaducts. The before and after show the dramatic improvement in the substructure piers. The project included over 7,000 steel repairs and the replacement of 148 deteriorated bearings, improving seismic resiliency on this major commercial corridor, significantly extending the longevity of the bridge. The work was staged from under bridge work platforms to facilitate the concurrent redecking of the Throgs Neck suspended spans while minimizing impacts to our customers. The project was completed in November, 12% under budget. At the Marine Parkway Bridge, this design-build project replaced tower elevators. The new elevators are protected from the elements by an innovative structural cladding system that blends with the bridge's aesthetic character. MTA partnered with the design builder during the design process of the design build to get a larger cab as well as additional structural steel and safety repairs while staying within the project budget and schedule. This project is on track for completion the end of this month, 12% under budget. The project was recently recognized by the Associated General Contractors of New York for excellence in partnering. Before I discuss our next completed project, I want to take a moment to orient you on B&T's flagship facility, the Robert F. Kennedy, formerly Triborough Bridge. The facility is really comprised of three distinct bridges: the Queens East River Suspension Bridge, the Harlem River Lift Span, and the Bronx Truss Bridge, all connected by elevated viaducts and approach roads that connect the three boroughs of Manhattan, Queens, and the Bronx. At the RFK, we're implementing accessibility improvements on all three bridges. The project shown in green on this slide is being completed this month and will be discussed in the next slide. So located on the Manhattan side of the Harlem River Lift Span, this design build project constructs a new ADA-compliant bike ped ramp shown on the left, connecting the sidewalk on the north side of Harlem River Lift Span to a future New York City greenway in East Harlem, delivering a significant commitment in the MTA's strategic action plan to improve bicycle and pedestrian access. In addition, as shown on the right, the fenders protecting the lift span towers were replaced with new fenders that meet modern standards, and the tower piers were rehabilitated. This contract bundled two projects that were in close proximity, maximizing the use of a limited staging area, reducing coordination of multiple contracts, and resulting in significant savings. The project will be completed later this month on schedule and 16% under budget. Shown on left is a photo of the newly constructed ADA-compliant bike ped ramp previously discussed. Next, I'll move on to our ongoing projects. Shown on this slide is a transformative design-build project ongoing at Randall's Island that reconfigures vehicular and bike ped access between the RFK Bridge and Randall Island. Working in close partnership with the New York City Parks, we are constructing 2 vehicular ramps and 3 new ADA-compliant bike ped paths to replace original deteriorated ramps. The work addresses both state of good repair and safety needs while also facilitating a future reconstruction of the Manhattan Plaza structure. During final design, the design builder optimized ramp layouts, eliminated piers, and minimized project durations. We also partnered with the contractor, as Jamie alluded to before, in piloting a reduction in embodied carbon of 24% by using low-carbon concrete. Project will transform access to and from Randall's Island, providing end-to-end ADA connectivity between Randall's Island, Manhattan, and the Bronx, delivering on a significant commitment that was made in the MTA's Strategic Action Plan to improve bike and pedestrian access. Project is 40% complete and is currently ahead of schedule and under budget. At the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, this $121 million design bid build project will extend the longevity of the 56-year-old lower level deck of the VNB suspended spans, deferring the need for a full deck replacement. The rehab effort includes concrete deck repairs, repaving, finger joint rehab, steel repairs, electrical and painting work, as well as installation of a weigh-in-motion system to detect overweight vehicles. A weigh-in-motion system is a system comprised of a carefully arranged set of equipment, including sensors embedded in the pavement, overhead cameras that detect weight, classification, and other identifying vehicle information while vehicles travel at full speed through the system. Overall, this project is 15% complete and is progressing ahead of schedule. Also at the Verrazano, this $41 million design bid build project will improve the VNB's connection to the eastbound Belt Parkway, allowing 2 lanes from the bridge to continue unimpeded, eliminating the current substandard center lane merge. The project has been extensively coordinated with New York City agencies, and once complete will significantly improve traffic flow and customer safety on the Verrazano, reducing congestion both on the bridge and by eliminating detours to the local street network that often occur when the Belt Parkway backs up. Construction is 27% complete, and we're progressing on schedule. At the Rockaway Bridges, this design-build project bundles several smaller projects into one design-build package. At Cross Bay Bridge, we're replacing the pedestrian ramp with an ADA-compliant bike ped ramp, rehabilitating the navigation spans and strengthening the bridge to meet truck loads, as well as installing a weigh-in-motion system. Once this new ramp is complete, there will be an ADA-compliant bike ped path across the entire Cross Bay Bridge, linking Broad Channel in Queens to the Rockaways, delivering another significant commitment in the MTA's Strategic Action Plan for improvement in bicycle and pedestrian access. Also at the Marine Parkway, we are replacing the finger joints and installing a weigh-in-motion system. Construction is 20% complete, and the project is expected to be completed on schedule later next year. At the Henry Hudson Bridge, this recently awarded project is the latest in a series of major reconstruction initiatives at the Henry Hudson. This project will complete the seismic retrofit of the bridge and once again delivers another major commitment in our series of accessibility improvements that were outlined in the Strategic Action Plan. Here we are widening the lower level sidewalk and constructing 2 new ADA-compliant connections, one at each end of the bridge, improving accessibility between Spuyten Duyvil and Inwood Hill Park in the northern end of Manhattan. Now we'll take a brief look ahead at what's coming up. This major project at the RFK implements all of the 3 previously discussed longevity strategies, while at the same time delivering the most significant commitment of our accessibility improvements that were outlined in the MTA Strategic Action Plan. Once completed, there will be a continuous ADA-compliant bike ped path from Astoria to Randall's Island, as Jamie had previously mentioned, And the overall bike ped access between the boroughs of Bronx, Queens, and Manhattan will have been significantly improved. In addition, the RFK facility will have end-to-end ADA accessibility between the boroughs of Bronx, Queens, and Manhattan to Randall's Island as a result of all of these RFK projects collectively. The contract for this project is being presented for your approval to award later in this meeting. Over at the Throgs Neck Bridge, this project bundles several co-located improvements under one design-build package to maximize efficiencies and project coordination. The project includes tower painting, construction of a new tower fender system meeting current standards, as well as rehab of tower elevators, main cable, and suspender rope work. This contract is also being presented for your approval to award later in this meeting.
No, this is this is Throgs Neck, even though it says RFK on the top.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, correct? Throgs Neck?
This upcoming, this upcoming design-build project at the Verrazano includes a complete exterior painting of the almost 700-foot-high V&B towers, removing the original lead-based paints and addressing corrosion of these iconic structures. This work has been bundled with co-located steel repairs and electrical work, maximizing efficiencies and minimizing customer impacts. Once completed, all lead-based paints will have been removed from the exteriors of our bridges and replaced with the B&T paint system that Jamie described earlier. The contract for this work is being presented for your approval for award later in this meeting. Another Verrazano project, this is the upcoming design-build project to install a dehumidification on the Verrazano's main cables. This project is planned for award later in 2024. And finally, this future design-build project at the Verrazano will reconfigure the Brooklyn approaches of the bridge. The most transformative aspect of this project is the construction of two new right-hand exit ramps with shoulders to the Bell Parkway, one from each the upper and the lower level, replacing the current original narrow, deteriorated, non-standard left-hand exit ramps. This project, in conjunction with the previously described Bell Parkway merge improvements, will significantly reduce traffic queues and collisions, addressing what is currently Bridges and Tunnels' #1 collision hotspot. Project is planned for award later this year, and that concludes the presentation.
Okay. So just for the record, I think you hit for the cycle, all of them under budget and on schedule or ahead of schedule. There was one that was $1 million off, but there's a rounding error, I'm pretty sure. So that's about as good as it gets, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to say on your last comment, so people understand it, this is exciting because we're being innovative and technology forward in the methodologies you use, the delivery methods you use. And also the fact that you have made ADA accessibility and bike ped access to the bridge is such a high priority. But do not overlook what the last point that Joe made, which is that left-hand exit on the Verrazano going to Brooklyn is super dangerous. People get confused because they're not used to exiting on a left hand, especially since they're trying to go the other direction, and that is a dangerous spot. So the safety mission is also being accommodated there. Other questions and comments, but we're going to hear from the, I broke protocol by commenting. We're going to hear from the IEC, but Jamie Barbas and Hayden Mahaltzis, and then we'll hear from the IEC.
Yeah, just real quick, what kind of procurement method are you using for the dehumidification systems?
We're using design build.
Okay, and so you do the lessons learned from our states that, Pennsylvania for the Ben Franklin, and it's a good desktop study to investigate.
We've gone on visits to other sites that have implemented it, and we've been talking to all the other owners, and yeah,
Good.
we've been trying to digest
There's some watch-its there.
all the
Okay,
lessons
great.
learned.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Mahaltzis?
Two questions. The Verrazano, the last project we talked about that's going to be awarded in '24, how long is that going to take? It's going to be a traffic nightmare as we do it, but it's going to improve traffic when it's done. So it's just managing that whole expectation.
Correct. The way the RFP is being structured, we're putting it to be a maximum of 4 years, but the proposers are incentivized to minimize the schedule. Also, the part of the project that has the most traffic impact and the most community impact, we're putting a special focus on minimizing the duration of that project. So the proposers are going to have to propose separately on that milestone to achieve reducing the schedule as much as possible in the section of the project that has the biggest public impact.
You briefly touched on overcoating in your presentation. How do we determine what gets overcoated? Like, do we bundle it with everything else that's going on?
I'll ask Joe to speak to that on the bridges.
Yeah, so we've assessed all our steel structures and have come up with a system of replacing the coatings. The first goal was to remove all the original lead-based coatings for several reasons, including safety reasons. We're sort of on the cusp of reaching that goal, as I mentioned, when we de-lead the towers of the Verrazano. After that, depending on the environment where the coating is used, there's a life cycle that we expect to achieve from the full replacement of the coating system. But that life cycle also depends on periodic overcoating and spot painting to keep the system intact so that it maximizes its full service life. So it's dependent on the location and but in general, we typically reach a 30-year cycle, and in between times, there's an overcoating cycle usually required.
And similarly on the subway system line structures, we have hundreds of miles of above grade line structures. The 20-year needs assessment began to rate those in terms of what's in poor and marginal condition, and now our development department, along with our planning department, are working on a prioritization for the next capital program. And ask Tim if there's anything you'd add on that.
Yeah, just also that, we call it overcoating, but it's also the primary means in which we do steel repair on our elevated structure. So those contracts include a significant component of steel repair. The paint and coating system is to protect those repairs, but so it's the condition and the age primarily.
So I'll be able to look in the 20-year needs assessment and see if, I feel like Lisa Soren, the 6 train is going to get an overcoating or something like that. The elevated
You'll be able
portion.
to look in the 20-year needs and see the current condition of different line segments, based on those evaluations. And then, as we put together the next plan in the coming year, that will include the prioritization of where we're doing work. And you're right, there's a coordination because, it has an impact on the street and also has an impact on the track level.
And are they graded, like A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4? Like, what's the?
Yeah, they have a numerical grade, but the poor and marginals are called out in the
Okay.
20-year need materials. So we're happy to answer any follow-up questions after you look at those
Great,
numbers.
okay, thank you.
Okay, let's hear from the IEC.
Good afternoon. While the IEC is not performing detailed monitoring on individual B&T projects this reporting period, we have identified potential projects that are currently in procurement to monitor in 2024, and these projects will be reported at the next B&T CPC meeting. Therefore, this month, for the benefit of the many new members that have joined the board, we would like to present a brief summary of the process, presentation, and key performance indicators that we use to evaluate MTA capital projects each quarter that are included in the Traffic Light Report, TLR. In addition, we will focus attention on how B&T projects are presented in the TLR. The latest quarterly TLR can be found on page 38 of the committee book. The TLR provides a broad overview on the status of projects in design through construction that span across multiple capital programs. The report has enabled the IEC to provide oversight coverage on hundreds of additional projects with a total value over $8 billion, which complements the IEC's risk-based monitoring of individual projects that are reported directly to the board on our monthly CPC meetings. If the TLR identifies significant issues with performance indicators on a particular project, the IEC will provide more in-depth monitoring. Together, inclusive of our in-depth project monitoring and the TLR, over $15 billion of active projects are reviewed and reported each quarter in the TLR. The IEC first analyzes project data generated by C&D and identifies the projects which exceeded cost and schedule key performance indicator thresholds since the previous quarter's TLR. Measures of the cost and schedule variance parameters and more detailed TLR values can be found on the first pages of the TLR, starting on page 38 of the committee book. For projects that trigger variance, read, the quarterly issues encountered and the strategies undertaken by the project teams are explained by C&D in brief variance reports that follow the TLR pages. The IEC also notes C&D senior staff have utilized the TLR process as an effective management tool to identify concerns, address issues, highlight corrective actions taken, and to evaluate the contractor's response and overall performance. It is important to note that while variances usually indicate cost or schedule concerns since the last quarter, variances can also result from positive business decisions, including scope changes or executed contract options that have significantly revised the project parameters. Examples might include moving forward to capture favorable market conditions and/or taking advantage of budget-saving actions by utilizing the contractor currently working on a project. Ultimately, any significant change impacting cost or schedule each quarter is identified and reported in the TLR. For this quarter's TLR, the IEC reviewed a total of 508 projects, 36 in design, 10 in post-design to construction, and 462 in construction. Of these 508 projects, 31 or 6% triggered a key performance indicator this quarter. 23 were for schedule variances, 7 were for cost, and 1 was for both cost and schedule. As cited earlier, for every project with a variance, C&D prepared a brief project summary, which the IEC reviewed and worked with the project teams and business units in preparation of the final reports located in this month's TLR. Because the CPC work plan focuses on B&T this month, of note is that this quarter, 25 bridges and tunnels projects were reviewed for cost and schedule variances. Only one project triggered one schedule variance, red, and 24 were green. In fact, the one B&T variance this quarter from the RFK Bridge painting program is attributed to B&T's business unit taking proactive cost-saving measures to accomplish additional work scope within the project's existing budget. Year to date, B&T projects continue to perform well and have had positive results in the TLR. This can be attributed to good project planning, proactive management decisions, and responsive project teams. This concludes our comments on B&T and the TLR.
Any board members want to comment on having 4% of B&T projects having a schedule or budget variance? Pretty good. And overall, what was it, 6% of the 508 projects you looked at?
Yes.
Suresh?
Yeah.
Okay. Not going to let that pass unnoticed, folks. This is headed in the right direction. Well done, Jamie. And thank you, Suresh, for looking at all that, and especially well done, Joe. Any other comments or questions? Because we do have Mr. Brown.
Yeah, without actually apologizing, you're not supposed to really apologize in public. Last meeting, I made a couple cynical, sarcastic comments about the rust and the overhead tracks, following up on Haida's comments about the Bronx tracks. We got a few in Brooklyn, too. But I asked where you could see a well-painted facility, and you sent me to Broadway Junction. I went over there, And it was truly a beautiful paint job. And, you know, paint is always an indicator of me to, it's like the first line of maintenance. If you can't bother to paint it, you're not going to bother to maintain it. And I'm also a detailed guy, kind of a mechanical inspector. And I looked all over that for some signs of poor prep. You know, there's always, in painting, there's always a tendency, especially toward the end of the day, the end of the job, to like blow past something. And I did not see a single, you know, rust, wart sticking through that paint. It looked really good. And if you can do that all through our Brooklyn overhead facilities before you do Hayes Bronx facilities, you know, I'll be very happy. I thought it was really wonderful stuff. And, you know, I do have one other cynical thing to say, though, about the Verrazano Bridge, moving the thing from the left to the right. Yeah, I agree. Everybody else gets off on the right. That does, you know, in brain terms, it will correct some of the people who are confused, but I don't buy that people are confused, and that's what's causing your accidents. I cross that facility quite frequently, and it's really a question of people not being willing to wait in the queue to get off the bridge. And you will still have that problem on the right. So now people will be going around to the left until the last minute to cut in because, you know, they're all in the Secret Service or something and they're much more important than you are. But I would like to see you take some, you know, low-tech changes to force them to queue up earlier to protect the you know, and that's where I mean, I think that's where you're getting all the fender benders on Verrazano Bridge. I mean, yeah, some people are confused. You know, I get confused there a little. I'm easier to confuse than I used to be, but you know, it's mostly people being piggish. And, you know, I'd like to see something to modify that behavior since we can't seem to modify ourselves. Other than that, great work, great design. I love it.
Okay, and I just, because you raised it, I just want to remind everybody that a couple of months ago we heard about the new methodology that's being used to repair and prep you know, aging steel as well as the overcoating process. So there's a lot of innovation going on that has real benefit. We have a ton of procurements. Unless there's further comment or questions, I'm going to move us along. Mr. Iceland to procurements.
Thank you. Yes, Construction and Development is presenting 18 procurement actions totaling $1.6 billion this month. The procurement package includes the following 15 competitive actions. An award to replace the Webster Avenue Bridge, which spans the Long Island Railroad Port Washington branch in Manhasset. And to address the speaker's question, it does makes room for 2 tracks there for the future. An award for ADA improvements at the New York City Transit Broadway Junction Station in Brooklyn, and that one comes with a elevator and maintenance contract. An award to replace the facility monitoring and safety systems at the Hugh L. Carey and Queens Midtown Tunnels. An award to install CCTV systems for passenger identification at various New York City transit stations. An award to replace escalators at 6 New York City transit stations. An award to replace elevators at 17 stations, and that one also comes with a maintenance contract. An award to rehabilitate the East River suspended spans and anchorages of the Robert F. Kennedy Bridge, and as mentioned, that one comes with new shared use paths. An award to install emergency alarm systems at 36 New York City transit stations and 15 substations. An award for tower fender protection and painting at the Throgs Neck Bridge. That one includes elevator refurbishment and an elevator maintenance contract. An award for tower painting, lighting, and electrical upgrades at the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, and 2 modifications to extend maintenance contracts for up to 6 months at Grand Central Madison. The package also includes the following 3 ratifications: a modification to replace a DC rectifier transformer at Metro North's Croton Harmon Yard, and 2 modifications to install bus radio equipment on approximately 1,600 new buses and to provide training and certifications for 32 bus installers. These items are described in detail in the staff summaries contained within your committee books, and I submit them for your consideration and vote.
The total for these is?
I'm sorry?
The total.
The total is 1.6 billion.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments on any and all of this? Okay. It's quite a package. We are at the end of the year, so eventually we're going to smooth it out, right, Evan? One of these days.
Yes, sir.
But you know, having deadlines is also a good thing, so we see what that does.
Evan, I have a question on the Webster Avenue one, though, is it Webster Avenue, Webster Street in Manhasset?
It's Webster Avenue Bridge.
How long is that going to take?
18 months,
18
my
months,
colleagues
okay.
tell me.
And remember, that's a road bridge.
Yes, no, it's
Yeah.
That
below-
somehow
yes.
or another, it's lost in the midst of time. The
Yeah.
MTA somehow inherited responsibility for its condition, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
From the
All
town of Manhasset.
right. With that, I will ask for a motion to approve.
Motion.
Ms. Barbas, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. All in favor? Any opposition or abstention? The items carry. Thank you, everybody. That concludes the agenda. No. We got to go back and do the minutes because I wasn't here. There have been a set of minutes circulated, November Capital Program Committee meetings, and they're available on the websites. Changes or comments? Going. Motion to approve.
So
Thank
moved.
you, Ms. Mihalcis. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for the second. The minutes are approved, and motion to adjourn. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
All right, Tim Sullivan, come over here.